By the end of this video, you will probably yawn, and you will not be able to stop it. In fact, there is a good chance you already feel one coming just from hearing the word. Yawn. There it is again. You yawn when you are tired, when you are bored, when you see someone else do it, and sometimes for no reason you can name. It feels like one of the most ordinary things your body does, so ordinary that you have never questioned it. But the yawn is one of the strangest, most stubborn mysteries in all of biology. You think a yawn means you are tired. But the real answer is far stranger than sleep. Start with what almost everyone believes. The old idea was that you yawn because your blood is low on oxygen and a big gulp of air tops it up. It is a clean, sensible story. It is also almost certainly wrong. Researchers have tested it directly. They gave people extra oxygen, and it did not stop them yawning. They raised carbon dioxide levels, and that did not reliably cause yawning either. The thing you were taught about yawning turns out not to hold up. So if it is not about oxygen, what is it about? One of the most compelling answers comes from the psychologist Andrew Gallup, who proposed something surprising. You do not yawn to breathe, you yawn to cool your brain. Your brain is a fragile, expensive organ, and it works best inside a narrow temperature range. When it runs too warm, it runs poorly. Gallup's idea is that a yawn is a radiator. That enormous stretch of the jaw forces a huge flow of air through your mouth and sinuses and increases blood flow to the skull, helping carry heat away from the brain. The deep inhale pulls in cooler, outside air. In a sense, a yawn is your head opening a window. The evidence is strange and specific. Studies have found that people yawn less when something cold is pressed to their forehead, and more when it is warm. Yawning tends to cluster at the moments when brain temperature is most likely to be creeping up, like right before sleep and right after waking, when your body is shifting gears. Even some animals appear to yawn more in certain temperature conditions. A yawn, on this view, is a quick burst of cooling for an overheating mind. That already turns the yawn into something far more interesting than tiredness. But it does not explain the weirdest thing about yawning. The thing you have known your whole life. Yawning is contagious. You see someone yawn, and you yawn. You read about yawning, and you yawn. You think about it too hard, and there it goes. No other simple reflex spreads from person to person like this. So why would a brain-cooling mechanism jump from one human to another like a signal passing through a crowd? The scientist who studied this most deeply was the psychologist Robert Provine, who spent years on the humble yawn. He found that contagious yawning is powerful and reliable. Show people yawns, and around half of them will yawn back, often within minutes. He also found something telling about when it begins. Babies yawn in the womb, all on their own. But contagious yawning, catching it from someone else, does not appear until a child is around 4 or 5 years old. The personal yawn and the social yawn are two different things, and the social one switches on only as the child's brain develops the ability to connect with other minds. That timing is a huge clue, because it lines up with something else. Around that same age, children develop empathy, the ability to model what someone else is feeling, and that points to the leading explanation for contagious yawning. It is a byproduct of empathy. This is the work of researchers like Stephen Platek, who studied who catches yawns most easily. The findings are striking. People who score higher on measures of empathy are more likely to catch a yawn. People with conditions that affect social connection tend to catch them less. And you are more likely to catch a yawn from someone you are close to, a friend or family member, than from a stranger. The yawn travels along the lines of social bonds. It spreads further between people who are emotionally connected. So a contagious yawn is not just a reflex. It may be a faint, automatic flicker of your brain syncing with another person's. When you catch someone's yawn, some deep part of your nervous system is briefly mirroring theirs. You are, in the smallest possible way, feeling what they feel. And that opens up a beautiful possibility for why this evolved at all. Think about an early human group, sleeping and waking together, needing to stay coordinated to survive. If a yawn helps cool and reset a drowsy brain, then a yawn spreading through the group could help synchronize everyone's alertness at once. One person's brain says it is time to wind down, and the signal ripples outward, nudging the whole group toward the same state. Contagious yawning may be an ancient tool for keeping a tribe in rhythm, awake together, drowsy together, alert together. Look at how much is hidden inside something so dull. Andrew Gallup reframed the yawn as a way to cool an overheating brain. Robert Provine showed that catching a yawn is a developmental milestone, switching on only as we learn to connect. Stephen Platek tied that contagion directly to empathy and social closeness. 3 scientists, 1 tiny gesture, and underneath it a machine for cooling the mind and quietly binding a group together. To see how deep this goes, look at how old yawning is. It is not a human quirk, or even a mammal quirk. Fish yawn, snakes yawn, birds yawn, even a fetus yawns in the womb, months before it has ever been tired or bored. The personal yawn is one of the most ancient behaviors there is, shared across creatures, separated by hundreds of millions of years. Whatever it does, it has been worth keeping for an astonishingly long time. That alone tells you the bored, sleepy explanation was always too small. The social yawn runs deep, too, and it crosses the line between species. In 2008, a team led by the researcher Ramiro Jolie Mascheroni showed something that delighted dog owners everywhere. Dogs can catch yawns from humans. A person yawns and the dog yawns back. And in line with everything else we have seen, dogs are more likely to catch a yawn from their own owner than from a stranger. The contagion follows the bond, even between 2 different species. Chimpanzees catch yawns from each other as well. This is not a human accident. It is an old thread of connection running through the social animals, and you are simply one of the creatures holding it. Here is a clue that breaks the boredom story for good. People often yawn right before high-stakes, high-arousal moments. Skydivers have been seen yawning before a jump. Athletes yawn before they compete. Performers yawn in the wings before walking on stage. That is the opposite of being sleepy. The leading reading fits the cooling theory exactly. At those moments, your brain is about to demand peak performance, and a yawn may be a fast way to cool it and snap it into a state of sharp alertness. So a yawn is not always your brain winding down. Sometimes it is your brain gearing up, clearing its head for the moment that is about to matter most. And notice how hard a yawn is to stop. Once it begins, you can clamp your jaw and fight it, but it forces its way through, stretched and stubborn. Reflexes this powerful, this protected against your will, are usually ones evolution considered important. Your body does not let you easily override the things that have kept your ancestors alive. The shape of the yawn itself supports the cooling idea in a quiet way. It is not just an inhale. It is that enormous, forced stretch of the jaw, the kind that cracks your ears and pulls at your whole face. That stretch matters. Widening the jaw drives blood flow in the head and helps move air through the sinuses, like opening the vents on an overheating engine. Researchers have even found that how you breathe changes how much you yawn, because cooler air moving through the nose and mouth is part of what carries the heat away. The yawn is built almost perfectly to flush warmth out of the skull. It only ever looked lazy from the outside. There is one more layer worth sitting with. Yawning is tightly tied to the deep machinery of the brain, the systems that govern arousal, sleep, and shifting between states. Doctors have long noticed that changes in yawning can accompany certain neurological conditions, precisely because yawning is plugged into such fundamental controls. That is how basic this is. It is not a habit sitting on the surface of your behavior. It reaches down into the oldest operating system you have, the part that decides whether you are winding down or gearing up, whether you are alone or among your people. Notice, too, how little say you have in any of this. You did not decide to yawn when you heard the word at the start. You do not choose to catch a yawn from a friend across the room. It arrives on its own, rising up from a layer of you that sits beneath thought. That is exactly what you would expect from something this old and this important. The behaviors evolution trusts least to your conscious control are usually the ones it has been refining the longest. Your yawn is older than your language, older than your species, and to this day, it still does not ask your permission. So the next time you yawn, notice what is actually going on. If you are alone, your brain may be cracking a window to cool itself down. And if you caught it from someone else, something even older just happened. For one unguarded second, your nervous system reached across the space between you and another person and matched their rhythm, without a single word, without you choosing it at all. You thought a yawn meant you were tired. It might mean your brain is running hot. And when it spreads, it means something stranger and warmer. It means you are connected to the people around you more deeply and more automatically than you ever realized. And by the way, somewhere in the last 2 minutes, you almost certainly yawned. Now you know it was never really about being tired at all.